Yeah, I'm just gonna sit here. So if you're in here, I'll come pick it up after. So it's good. It's really species.
If you want the PowerPoint, the full PowerPoint, and then also a whole bunch more resources, I'll be like giving a whole bunch of thoughts and ideas on different resources. You can go ahead and text me right now, and you'll get an email with all of that right into your inbox. So you're texting to the person whose phone number is 44222. I know it's so weird and not intuitive to do that, but that's the to field. You're going to do 44222, and then the message that you're sending is just this Y4C, which is short for Yoga for Classrooms, Y4C intro. One word, doesn't matter if it's lowercase, uppercase, it really doesn't matter. And once you send that, it's going to ask for your email. It's going to come back and request your email address, and then that's it. It's really cool and simple, but it's also a little bit confusing to text a 5-digit number as a phone number, right? There'll be a whole bunch of just direct links to things that I'm talking about in that email, so hopefully that'll make your life easier so you don't feel like you have to take a gazillion notes right now. Hi ladies. Hi. So we're just texting right now to get the PowerPoint and the bonus resources, so it's just a quick, easy thing if you want to pull your phones out. In the meantime, while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Lisa Flynn. I'm the founder and CEO of Childlike Yoga and Yoga for Classrooms. Quick context, my story is a different one. You know, I've been noticing just listening to all the presentations yesterday and today so far, we're all coming from a different place, and the reason that we're here is so different context and whatnot. But for me, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a social worker. I know, it's so strange. I get the question all the time, oh, you must be this like gazillions of years long teacher. I'm really not. I've been in schools a lot, but my story is really one of being a student. I've been a student for a long time. I worked in schools for many years. And I have a trauma history, like so many of you guys probably, and so many of our students. I had a lot of the ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. If you gave me the checkbox, I pretty much have them all, right? Check, check, check. And not surprisingly, I didn't have the tools for resilience, and that's the case with a lot of our students. They don't have the skills for resilience, and they end up being in this kind of chronic state of stress, and that just really becomes toxic over time. And we don't have the skills. We find other ways, right, to numb out, to do something else so we don't have to feel our feelings. And you know, so for some people it's drinking or doing drugs. For me, it was starving myself. That was my MO. So I had a pretty severe depression and anorexia by the time I went to college, and was pulled out of school, thrown into an inpatient treatment facility for several months. And it was actually there that I was introduced to yoga. They didn't call it yoga. It was part of the recreational therapy, right? But looking back, my gosh, wait a minute, that was yoga. And I really hated it because I had to be quiet and be with myself. Well, that's not a place I wanted to be. I hated myself. The self-loathing was, you know, out the roof. But it planted some seeds at that time. Lucky for me, I was able to get well. So it took a few years and a lot of support and some help. But I graduated from school, went on to have a very successful career here, which is so weird. It's so weird to be back here. I spent several years here back in the day working for Leo Burnett. So I was on Michigan Avenue and all of that. But I live in southern Maine, so it's kind of fun to be back. And that was great, and I was practicing yoga at the time, and then we decided, my husband and I was married at that point, decided to have a family. So I had these little toddlers and these babies, and we had moved back to the seacoast in New England, and I had a very serious yoga practice at that point. And I remember thinking, as my kids were with me, and we were doing a practice in the morning kind of together, it was just really sweet, and it was a very bonding experience. I myself was grounded and centered and really present with them, and I noticed that as a family, our moods would improve, right? Like we just have a more positive day having had that time together. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? This has helped me so much in terms of learning self-compassion, learning to be in the present moment, learning to be with uncomfortable feelings, being in my body, feeling safe with that. I was more resilient to life, and I really thought that I really wanted to have that for my children. So because I wanted it for my children, I had no intentions outside of that. I went and took a teacher training, a kids yoga teacher training. By the end of that weekend, I was the most joyful, present, just filled up person I had ever been in my whole life. And I realized it was probably because I was playing for the first time. You know, it was very playful and sweet and joyful. And I was in my body, and I was fine with it, and it was awesome. And I went home, and in order to get certified in this program, I had to teach a couple of community classes. I'm like, oh, well, I might as well get the certification. I have no interest. I didn't even think I liked kids. I'm not even kidding. Like, I really, except for my own, I'm like, oh, teaching? Oh, man. All right. So I threw a couple classes together, 2 different age groups, both classes filled up at the church across the street. I offered them for free, and it was like an 8-week session over the summer. And by the end of that summer, my whole life was changed. Like, this is exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And teaching children has been to this day, after 15 years, such an important part of my healing journey as well. I really do feel like I've gotten just as much out of it as the kids have. So I eventually moved out of the rest of my career, and I started doing this full time, and it turned into what is now Childlight Yoga, which is a national training and professional development company with many, many specialty trainings under it. It's a Yoga Alliance registered children's yoga school, which means it's a 95-hour program. You could take the 95 hours, or you can just take a 1-day training. It's really up to you. There's lots there to offer. Then my kids got into school. And of course, everybody at this point knew I was the yoga lady. So, Mrs. Flynn, would you come and volunteer in your kids' classrooms and teach a little yoga? Sure, no problem. So I go into the school and very quickly realize that what I was teaching in the studios with yoga mats and all of that, and it wasn't totally working in the classroom setting, so I had to get kind of creative. And I was able to be at this school teaching the entire school, every single classroom. I was there 5 days a week for 3 years. And it was through that experience, or what I call the pilot program from 2007 to 2010, that Yoga for Classrooms was really developed. So what is now Yoga for Classrooms, the card deck, my books, everything else that has happened since has really happened because of that one opportunity. So I got feedback from the teachers, feedback from the students, feedback from the parents, and developed a curriculum and a full-day workshop, and even some advanced training since. And we really focus on empowering schools from the inside. So we don't want schools to be dependent on us as a program provider to be integrating yoga and mindfulness into the class day. We want that to be really authentic to you. We want you to have your own self-care practice, right? And have your own practice first, and then hopefully be able to layer in some of these tools and strategies to help your kids be in the present moment and be learning ready. So we're gonna dive right in. This is an example of a sequence. You might not always have time to do a whole sequence, but this is a really nice one for the morning because we're gonna integrate all the different movements of the spine. And as well, it's just a great way to start the day. Do any of you have responsive classrooms integrated at your schools? Or responsive classrooms is like a second step or one of these other social emotional learning programs. It's really popular where I'm from because it's based in the Northeast. So a lot of the schools that we work with love our program because it dovetails so nicely in with that. And they both support each other. But one of their phrases that they use is morning meeting. So morning meeting is a time for the class community to come together for some connections. There's usually some discussions. And that tends to be a time where it's really a natural fit to integrate some yoga and some mindful moments. Yeah, we do that too. Yeah. So this is an example of a great wake up the body, but also center at the beginning of the day. Let's define mindfulness though, really simple, right? In a nutshell, we've been talking about it for 2 days if you've been here. Just being in the present moment, right? With kindness and curiosity. Just being here in the present moment. It's really easy to say that. Then when you talk about teaching it to kids, it's like, ooh, how do we do that? Even adults, for that matter. It's not that easy for us to just be still and be in the present moment, right? Your brains are going everywhere. Your thoughts are all over the place. You might be fidgeting, and it's not easy to ask a first grader then to just sit. Let's take a mindful moment, everybody, and just sit and be quiet, right? And they're climbing the walls. That's probably not going to go over really well. So there are really 3 things that we want to think of when we're sharing mindfulness practices with kids. Mindfulness practices meaning whether it's being in our mindful bodies and moving or doing some other kind of focusing activity. It needs to be developmentally appropriate for sure, right? We need to make sure that what we're sharing is going to resonate with the population that we're working with, so developmental age in particular. We also need to make sure it's engaging. I mean, who wants to do something that's not relatively fun and interesting, right? So is it engaging? Is it developmentally appropriate? And then the next is it beneficial? So we could be sharing something for a while, and if it's not resonating, you might want to try something else. So engaging, developmentally appropriate, and beneficial. One of my favorite tools just to start with, just as a transition or centering activity, or just a way to get attention in the moment and get the focus back on me for whatever's happening next, is to use one of these guys. How many of you have a single bar chime in your classroom? I love it, right? It has a beautiful sound. It's a great way to get attention without raising your voice. And what I like to do is ring the chime and allow for people to finish up their conversations, put their book away, and have their attention back on me before the sound stops. So you usually have about 15 seconds to do that, and it becomes kind of a fun class challenge, like, okay, quick, is it still going, kind of thing. Is that engaging? Yeah, it's developmentally appropriate, it's fun, it's a little bit of challenge, and guess what? At the end of that, all eyes are on me, and you're listening, and you're ready for the next thing, so super fun. Another exercise you could do is chime listening. Have you done some chime listening before? I put a little twist on it. So I'm going to ring the chime, and you can close your eyes if you want to. Sometimes when we close our eyes, it makes our ears open up a little bit more. If closing eyes is not comfortable for you, that's totally fine. You could just look down at a spot on your chest. Just bring your attention into yourself a little bit. I'm going to ring the chime, and when you can no longer hear it anymore, I just want you to lift your hand up so that I know that, okay? Here we go. Okay, gently opening your eyes. So what you couldn't see that I was doing is, as you were listening, I was walking around the room, and if someone had their hand up, I would bring it closer to their ear and be like, oh, I can still hear it. Super fun, right? Where was your attention during that practice? Right here? You weren't thinking what you had to do after the conference today, right? You're right here, right now. Yeah, and now I have your attention as well. Something else you could do with the chime, and I wouldn't necessarily do these back to back, but that's such an easy, simple 15-second transition activity, right? You're transitioning from one thing to the other. A simple chime listening just offers us an opportunity to take a mindful pause and get in the present moment. Quick, simple, easy. It's an example of one of our imagination vacations, mindful meditation. So these are just short, quick, simple, takes 50 seconds to a minute to do a lot of these practices here. So there's a whole bunch of different things. The key really to sharing mindfulness with children, and the easiest way even for adults, is to utilize the senses, to use the senses to provide an anchor for the focus. So in this case, what is it? We're listening to something, right? So that gave us a place to anchor our focus. We can also use our breath to anchor our focus. We can use our bodies. I have to think about what I'm doing when I'm holding tree pose, right? You can't not be in the present moment and actually be balanced in tree pose, right? And so on and so forth. Taste meditations. Last night, how many of you were watching the movie last night? Is anybody here for that? And may I be happy? That was so good. So good. Tears streaming down. It's like, yes, exactly. But they did a mindful eating exercise. We got to sort of watch that and participate in that with a clementine. The kids were just really present with this clementine, smelling it, tasting it, feeling the sensation of it going down. It's just imagining where it came from. There's so much richness that can happen just from that. So again, really using the senses to provide an anchor for the focus. Mary Beth, I'm going to ring this chime and I'm going to pass it to you. And your challenge is to be in her mindful body enough that she can take this chime from me without what? Touching the metal. And keep that chime ringing as she passes it to her friend Kelsey, and then Cheryl, Terry, and then
Mary,
and then Mary's gonna go back to Kathleen, and we're just gonna see if we can zigzag all the way around the room before it stops. What do you think? Are you ready for the challenge? Okay, here we go. I can still hear you. Yeah. Is it still going? It is still going. If I had a microphone, I'd put it up here. Good job. Give yourself a hand. Yay for you. All right. That's a small group, so it was relatively easy. Good job. Where was your attention?
Sound.
You're watching though too, right? So now we're listening and watching, and what else are we integrating?
Movement.
You really have to be mindful about how you're taking that chime and how you're passing it to the next person for us all to be successful. So it's a community builder as well, right? Nice. So just a couple of examples, simple, quick. Did that take very long? Not very long at all. And now I've got your attention. All right, let's integrate the body a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and stand up, and I want you to tuck your chairs in. Now, if we've got a little bit more space in here than you even might in a typical classroom space. So you want to make sure that you can bring your arms out and that you can come forward. So if we were in a classroom setting, that might mean that we have to step forward or back, right? That might mean that we might need to angle our bodies a little bit. But for the most part, hopefully we can stay in general around the space that we have with our desk and our chair in front of us. The other really cool thing about being in a classroom versus a studio is that we have the table and we have the chair that we can use to help us with balance or modifications as needed. So it's really fun to see how that works as well. We'll get to experience that in a second. So we're gonna come first into mountain pose. This is the foundation of everything that we're gonna do standing. We're always gonna come back to mountain. So find your feet. Notice your feet on the floor. See if you can line up your toes and make railroad tracks with your legs so that if you look down, your legs look like railroad tracks from your hips down to your feet. Let's rock back and forth. And think about the energetic qualities of a mountain. What are they? Think about when we think about the qualities of a mountain.
Wide base.
Wide base, yeah, stable, right? Stability, tall,
Strong.
majestic, strong. Yeah, let's breathe our shoulders up. And then exhale them out, let out your exhale. Like that, letting go breath. Breathing up, let it go. Feel the weight of your body come into your feet. Breathing up, let it go. Where's your awareness? In your feet. So this is a very grounding practice. Mountain pose is all about providing an anchor, so stability, and center ourselves and to ground ourselves. And then we're going to wait for what's next. It allows us a little bit of a pause in between all the activities. So it really becomes kind of a metaphor for what we're doing and hoping to do all day long. And pause. Okay. Notice what's happening. What's next? In this case, you're listening to me for instructions. So we're going to move the spine in all of the various movements. This is one of them right here. We're lengthening. Right? Let's add a breath as well. Let's go ahead and put our hands on our bellies. We're going to do some balloon breathing. So we're going to breathe in through our nose, and as we inhale, our lungs are going to fill and our belly will start to come out. Usually we walk around with our bellies in and we're breathing from our chest, and that really means that we're depriving ourselves of oxygen. Truly, that's how we walk around most of the time. So if we breathe in and allow our diaphragm to fall down as the lungs expand, naturally our belly might come out a little bit. And I'm going to use my hands, and I'm actually going to exaggerate that. So I'm going to breathe in and watch what I'm doing. I'm going to provide a visual cue for you as to what your body's supposed to be doing. This is an inhale. Looks like that, right? I'm giving my space for my lungs and belly to expand. Exhaling all that stale balloon air back out. Inhale. Exhale. Good. Inhale one more time. Big balloon belly. And exhale it back out. Integrating movement with the breath. Very helpful, very engaging, very developmentally appropriate. It's really hard to watch a kindergartner or even a fourth grader and know how they're breathing. If we had our hands down our sides, okay, everybody, do some balloon breathing. I can't really tell what you're doing, and you don't really have a sense of what you're even supposed to do either. So we can integrate some movement and really encourage movement with the breath. Not only are we providing a visual cue, but it's going to help with pacing, and it's going to be more engaging for your students as well. Does that make sense? Is it even probably more engaging for you, right, than just standing there? All right. You can always integrate something like this too. This is a mini Hoberman sphere. Again, a nice visual cue. I'm giving you a visual anchor for your focus as you're that one's a little sticky, as you're continuing to breathe. So it's fun. These start to become, you can take turns with them, and then eventually if you have one of these on your desk and you've been using that for a while, you can just go like this and everybody goes. Yeah, okay. You don't need it though. Using hands I actually like even better. All right, going back to mountain. Let's do a couple more movements of the spine here. Let's raise our arms up to the sky. Inhaling your arms up, right, because we're creating space for the lungs to open. Exhaling to the left, crescent moon. So this is side bend. Notice what you notice. Inhaling up, exhale, side bend to the right. Where do you feel the stretch? Exhale. Anyone? Yeah, your waist, your hip, maybe your under your arm, your bicep and tricep, I think. Good. So when we talk about that, we have students reflecting on what they notice in the moment, whether it's a sensation in the body or whatever. What are we doing? We're bringing them right into the present moment, right? We're getting them in touch with what's happening in their bodies. Good job. So crescent moon. When I come into classrooms, a lot of times I will come the second or third week. All right, everybody, let's come into mountain. Remember mountain pose? And the students will go, and they'll hold their breath. Like, I know what mountain is. This is mountain. Mm-hmm. We call this tin soldier. That's one of the here's and ideas on the back. So you can see how these are really laid out. This is the front of the card, demonstrates what it is, what the qualities are, or the intentions of the activity, the name of the activity, and on the back, it's stepped out. Step 1, step 2. So really, anybody who's reading could lead the activity. And then typically at the bottom, like, here's an idea. Here's a few other things that you could do. You could try this, you could do that, you could play this game, you could do this writing assignment, you could check out this book, you could have this conversation. So whether it's a question. So mountain or tin soldier is one of those things. Your name is?
Terry.
Terry. So Terry's gonna be a tin soldier. So be super stiff, hold your breath, tighten, tense your muscles. If you're a tin soldier, woo, I'm barely touching her and I was able to knock her right over, right? That's not a mountain. Let's loosen it up. And shoulders up, land, find your feet, make your mountain base really stable, breathe. And do you see the difference? Did you feel that? I mean, really pushing her that time and she's not moving at all. So if we go around and we play that game, everybody wants to be tested, right? So we take a minute and we play that game. What are we doing? What's the point of that? We're bringing students into the present moment. We're getting them into their bodies. And they're feeling for themselves what it is to be a strong, stable mountain versus a forced sort of
connection when they're upset.
Exactly. So there's so many tie-ins that you can make, those emotional states that we get, versus when we're able to just ground for a moment, take a mindful pause, take a few breaths, we become much more stable and resilient to the stuff that's going on around us that might normally take us off kilter a little bit. All right, beautiful. So let's do, there's one more here. This is called Waterfall. Let's get a little back bend and a forward bend in. Now, I don't know about you, but I have really tight hamstrings, so I have to be really careful in the morning about just throwing myself down into a forward bend because my hamstrings are tight, and of course, all of these muscles are connected up through my lower back, and that's when you start to throw your back out. So we always want to warm up our backs first. So make sure you can come forward. Make sure you're in a place where you can do that. And you are going to bend in your knees and press your hips back a bit. And then exhale forward, keeping your chest open. Inhale, open. Exhale forward a little more. On your next exhale, lower your arms down. You're coming into ragdoll pose. Your feet should be slightly apart, and you can start to bend into one knee. Shift your weight from one foot into the other. Nod your head yes. Shake your head no. Let the top half of your body be loose and floppy, just like a rag doll. You can swing your arms from side to side and notice what you notice. Anybody feel a little bit of releasing in the lower back, the hamstrings, between the shoulder blades? If you just let your arms dangle out of their sockets, let them be nice and heavy here. Now open up all that and release all that tension between your shoulder blades. Nice. Now go ahead and anchor your hands onto your shins and very slowly start to round up the spine to your core muscles here as you draw your body back up to standing. Good. And then we're going to land in mountain again. So shoulders up. Exhale. Back to mountain. Pause. And we're going to do the next thing. How do you feel? A little more loosened up? Okay, so really important. Just takes one ragdoll usually just to loosen everything up so that now we can do some fun movement with a forward-backward motion. So we're going to do waterfall. Watch me once first. So just watch, and then I'll have you join in with me. Starts like this. Inhaling up, I'm going to do a little back bend here. This is the water at the top of the waterfall. And as I come forward, similar to what we just did, I'm going to press my hips back, bend in my knees, let the water come down, and I'm going to make an exhale audible sounding breath, splashing sound. Okay? And let that splash right up behind, giving me a nice shoulder stretch. I'm going to bend in the knees, use my core and my legs, not my back, to bring myself back up, and do it again. And then just swing. And join me? Yeah? Inhale up. Let me hear some good splashing sounds. Great. Inhale, exhale. Nothing more engaging than making noise. Good. Exhale down. Inhale up. And exhale your arms to your sides, or do another one if you want to. That's good. All right. Awesome. How do you feel? Notice. What's happening in your body? Set.
Warmer.
You're warmer, for one. Right, so you just got some blood flowing, right? We've got some oxygen-rich blood heading to the brain and to the different parts of our body. So it's going to warm us up. It's going to energize us a little bit, right? So I think one of the fallacies of mindfulness is that it's always supposed to be super quiet. Everything's about quiet and focusing and calming everybody down, and it's really not the case. There is this balance that we're always trying to find. Yes, we want to come into the present moment, but we also want to be alert. We don't want kids laying over their desk sleeping. That's not really going to be a learning ready state either, right? So we're always finding balloon breath, for example, can be energizing just as much as it can be calming. And it's really nice to get to that point where we have that balance between alert and calm, but also always being in the present moment. All right. We're missing one more spinal movement. This is called washing machine, right? So this is a twisting motion. So take your feet just a little bit further apart. Have your arms out to your sides, not way up here, just a little bit out to your sides. You're just going to start to swing and use the weight of your arms to just wrap around as you turn your torso from side to side. So your feet are staying in place. You can lift up a heel if you want to go a little deeper as you're turning. And just let your arms wrap around. How many of you have students, let's slow down our wash cycle. How many of you have students who are constantly running into things, or each other, or rolling around on the ground, or rocking back and forth in their chairs? Those students tend to need, for whatever reason, some sensory input. They're trying to give themselves that input that they need to keep their brains online. So in a way, they're self-regulating. Right? Although a lot of times we look at that as really irritating behavior, we can sometimes look at it instead as a white flag and a signal to us that our students need a minute, especially if we've got a lot of that going around. That's a sign. Okay, let's get up. Let's give ourselves a little bit of that same, this is vestibular input. Give ourselves some of that. Same thing with this washing machine. That's great. Your vestibular system resides in your inner ear. And when we're able to move the head in different directions, it gives us that input that we're seeking with some of those crazy behaviors. When we're bumping into things, we're looking for pressure. We're looking for proprioceptive input. So giving ourselves a sense of where we are in space, that's another type of sensory input that's really powerful. So strengthening poses like chair pose, that's proprioceptive input. In time we're using the large muscles of our body. Another thing we can do after washing machine is do a tapping in. So say we washed out some grumpies. What might we replace that with? Happiness, or like just joy or whatever. And so let's start from the top of your head. You can watch what I'm doing, or you can even close your eyes to just really feel this. We're gonna tap, 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 firm taps all over your head, down the front of your face. This is amazing for proprioceptive input, okay? We're literally telling our body where it is. Down your chest, your belly, your rib cage, your hips. Tap, 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 all the way down the front of your legs, over your knees. You're learning a foreign language, right? You're calling out these body parts in the foreign language. There's so many different things that you can do to integrate what you're learning. And then reaching around monkey arms to the upper back and shoulders. And then working your way down the front of one arm with your opposite hand and off the back side. Tap, 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 really firm taps. And down the other side, the other arm. And then when you're ready, just letting your arms rest to your sides. Eyes stay closed for just a moment. Notice what you notice. Breathing in and out. Gently opening your eyes. Anybody feel those little tingles? So you just brought that oxygen-rich blood to the surface of the skin. Notice that you're alert, right? So that's energizing in a way. It's turning your brains online, right? So whatever's happening in the moment. It's also very calming to the nervous system as well. So it's alerting for the brain, but calming for the nervous system. That's like the optimal place that we need our students to be. So there's always this like really nice balance that we're trying to find. So those something on the screen or some of these cards and activities, they might say, this is great for calm and focus, or this is really energizing. It's really both. I think it's about the intention of what it is that we're trying to get to. Yes. What's that? No, that's a tapping in. That's actually, yeah, this is like the final, one of the ending steps. So you wash out and then you tap in. Yeah, it's just part of the washing machine practice. All right, so we're going to move on to something that requires a little focus. You can't do a focus challenge or a balance challenge, for example, like King Dancer, without being in the present moment, really thinking about what you're doing. So where do we need to start? Yes, mountain pose, exactly. So find your feet. I'm bringing you right back to your feet again. I'm bringing you into your body, even just as I say that. You can rock back and forth. Feel your feet on the ground. Even bounce a little bit. Grounding. Good. Inhaling up. Exhaling down. Now find a focus point with your eyes. That's just giving yourself an anchor for your focus so that you're not looking around the rest of the room. It's actually kind of magic too, because it's going to help you with your balance. So find some small thing across the room, not me. You don't want to look at me, you might want to look at the icon, okay, the Stand Strong icon on the screen, something like that. That's good to rest your eyes on. And then when you're ready, you're going to shift your weight to your right foot and raise your right arm for balance. Now, if you're not feeling super balanced today, you know you're going to lift off your foot. You can put your hand on your chair. Right at first, or your table. It's up to you, so go ahead and try that if you like. And when you're ready, lift up your foot and see if you can grab onto it. And if that's not available to you, just take your foot off the floor. Okay, so always offering some modifications. There's no good or bad version, it's just a different version. Okay, eyes are on your focus point. Beautiful balance, everybody. Breathing in and out. Staying with your breath is also going to help you with your balance. When you're breathing in and out slowly and steadily, it gives a message to your brain that you're safe, which calms your nervous system, makes your body support you in a more calm manner. So it's going to help with your balance. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly release the foot, just moving back through the steps in the sequence, staying in our mindful bodies. Coming back to mountain. Nice. Shoulders up. Exhale down. Beautiful job. All right, go ahead and have a seat. For the sake of time, we're not going to be able to do the gratitude relaxation, but I might like to do something like that. So these purple activities, these are the imagination vacations. They're great for relaxation. They're great for opening up the creativity centers of the brain, getting both hemispheres of the brain talking to each other and really getting us to a state where we're able to be relaxed, learning ready. We've got our prefrontal cortex turned on and so forth. Relaxation is so important. Visual imagery is a great way to get there. Each of these visual imagery exercises that we share have a different theme. This one is super easy, very simple, and it's about gratitude, and it's a fantastic way to shift perspective, right? You've got the grumpies. You can't be grumpy when you're thinking of all you have for which to be grateful. It's really kind of impossible. It really is. So we don't have time to practice it right now, but that's just one example of a lot of these imagination vacations and mindfulness meditations. So what is yoga? I like to, instead of saying the body, the mind, and the spirit integration, which I think we hear a lot of, I really like to use the 3 B's: the body, the brain, and the breath. The word spirit gets people kind of weirded out sometimes, but if you think of the root word of the word spirit, it's spirere in Latin, which actually is the same root of respiration, right? So easy, that's great. We'll just switch it out to breath. Body, brain, and breath, 3 B's, easy to remember, kids get it. And everything that we're doing is getting those 3 things working together. And there's so much richness to talk about that, and so many ways to go into that, which we don't have time to do in this introductory workshop. But if you want to join me tomorrow, I'll be here all day for that. Steeped in mindfulness. You can't do yoga without being mindful, right? So being in the present moment with kindness and curiosity so that we can choose our behavior. That's the way that we get there, is taking those mindful pauses. And mindfulness practices improve all kinds of abilities. One of the really coolest ones that I found is that we learn when we're really present in the moment, with the joy of the moment, that we're able to be much more open and appreciative of the most subjective and mundane of experiences, right? Like, how many of you drive home sometimes and you pull into your garage and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I just get here? Right? You didn't notice the elderly couple walking hand in hand, down the sidewalk. You didn't even notice that the buds were all blossoming on the trees in the park that you passed, But imagine if we did, right? Imagine if when you're washing the dishes, instead of being grumbly about doing it, because that's like one more pain in the butt thing to do in your day, imagine being so present with washing the dishes that those bubbles are glistening and you just think it's the most magical thing, and then all of a sudden you have tears streaming down your face because you have water running out of your faucet just because you're turning it on. All of a sudden, washing the dishes becomes this just kind of awe and wonder producing activity. And that's the magic, I think, that mindfulness, really being present with what's happening in the here and now, can do from us, whether it's having a conversation and really being present with our kids, our own children, even at home when we're talking with them, to just about anything else. That's what I love about it the most. And we want to keep it secular, right? So really, really important. We had this conversation yesterday. I've written quite a bit on this topic, just in terms of yoga in schools and how it's not a religious practice, and what are some of the ways that we can make sure that there's no question about that when we're sharing yoga and mindfulness and meditation in school. You'll have links to a few of those articles that I've written on that topic that will be in that resources email, along with a whole bunch of other things. Let's talk about the scientific evidence. There's a ton. It's growing, growing, growing. It's so much fun to watch. I had a lot of questions coming to me for years from folks that I was working with saying, hey, can you tell me, there's got to be a study on how yoga supports kids with ADHD, or there's got to be a study on how yoga in schools can help to support academic achievement. And I'm not a researcher, so I didn't necessarily have access to all of that to make that really easy to give studies to people. And so I partnered with a researcher who helped me publish our study, and we developed this research repository, and it's a free download, and it is amazing. It's all of the peer-reviewed, evidence-based studies, all put in one place for you, categorized, organized on children, adolescents, and in schools in terms of integrating yoga, mindfulness, and meditation. So those really high-quality studies and research review articles are all in there, and you can go to that, and there are links to the actual full manuscripts or the abstracts. And if you go to the page before you get to the download itself, there's a whole list of bullet points of all the benefits of integrating yoga, mindfulness, and meditation at school with the related citations with direct links next to those. So that page alone is amazing, and hopefully that will serve as a great resource for you. That was a bit of a service project and continues to be for us. We update it every 4 months. We started with 350 studies, I think, and there's over 1,000 in there now in just 3 years. So that in itself shows the level of growth and interest from doctoral students to, just about anybody. I get 2 calls a week saying, hey, we just used your repository, thank you so much. We're working on a study in our school of blah, blah, blah. Or I'm working on my dissertation and I've decided to focus on this as a topic. Tons of that going on right now. And as you know, the more evidence there is to support this work, the more policy change there's going to be, right? So that this becomes just something that we're doing in schools and not a big, weird, crazy, separate, extra thing, right? Okay, so we had a little pilot study, so little, 2 classrooms, but it was published, I think in part because it was the very first yoga in schools research study to go beyond looking at the teacher's perspective in terms of what she was seeing in the classroom or even with herself. We actually went and we looked at some physiological markers of stress too, like what were the changes in cortisol, right, pre and post and all of that, which was really fascinating. But in general, teacher reports of perceived behavior changes in all of these general areas, which is completely reflective of the larger body of evidence that's out there, so nothing shocking there. We hope to do a lot more studies. It's fun when I get calls and emails. People are using our program without me even knowing as an intervention in the studies that are going on. So we're trying to keep up with all of that, but it's really fun to watch. What are the components of an effective school yoga program? What needs to be included in order for it to be holistic? We certainly need poses, we certainly need relaxation, we certainly need breathing, meditation, mindfulness techniques. Of course, that's all part of it. But how many of you are yogis? You practice yoga, or maybe you're even a yoga teacher, so you know that yoga is even more than that, right? There's 8 limbs of yoga, and so if we really broaden our thought about that, we can also consider, we call them yoga principles for children. So what else does it take to be a whole, healthy, happy person? Is it important that we're taking care of ourselves, eating right, getting enough rest, drinking enough water? Is it important that we practice gratitude, right? That we're honest, that we're a peacemaker, that we're a good citizen? It's all of those things, right? So we have this whole other category, these green cards that are called the Be Well, and they're really discussion starters around concepts around character development, social emotional learning, and really self-care. We're not going to go through all this. This is our mission. This is what we do. We really support schools in supporting themselves and their school communities and wellness. There's a bit more information on what makes this program a little bit unique, a little accessible, focused on the whole child and so forth, and it's really pretty simple. Not to water it down too much, I can give you the skills, I can give you a bunch of tools and strategies and the science behind them and why they can be really helpful in certain situations during the day at school, but it's also got to start here with you. So that's not what this workshop is today, but to just go back to Matt's talk this morning, this is really where it starts. It starts here first, of course. So we have breathing practices. Let's breathe at your desk. There's some things we can do right here in our chairs without even getting up. Goodness knows we don't want our 6th grade boys taking off their shoes, right? We're going to keep our shoes on. We're going to keep the classroom where it is. We're not going to be rolling out yoga mats here. What can we do standing and using our desk and chair? Just what we have right in front of us, okay? Without needing to go out to a hallway. Loosen up activities, community builders, mindfulness activities, washing machine. Something like washing machine, it was yellow, right? It's not a yoga pose, but it's an opportunity to get up, loosen up, release tension, build community, get our brains back online for learning. Imagination vacations, those are the visual imagery exercises, the mindfulness meditations, we've gone over a little bit of that, and then the Be Well topics as well, just as important, right, as the rest of it. Yoga for Classrooms, our approach to self-regulation is really focused on this outcome of integration. So what does that mean? What does integration mean? How many of you know about the science of neuroplasticity? A little bit? So Dr. Siegel was talking about that in the movie last night, right? He's amazing, Dan Siegel. He was just like, you can change your brain. We can change our brain. We just have to build new habits of mind. That takes a little bit of practice, right? That's ultimately what we're trying to do in our classrooms with our students. If I'm introducing balloon breathing and I just do it once, and we move on and we never do it again, is that something that students going to remember or utilize any other time? Absolutely not. We have to be integrating and pulling these tools out of the toolbox and noticing as a class community what the need is in the moment. So noticing first as an individual and as a class community. So if I ask Todd, what do you think about the energy in here right now? And Todd was like, oh, it's like a little bit high and crazy, right? I was like, well, what should we do? Hey, class, Thomas and I were just talking about how the energy in here is like really here right now, yet we have to get ready to go to music class right now. Like, is there something, what can you think of from our toolbox that we've developed together, practiced together? Can you think of something that might help us just bring our energy down so that we can be more ready to go through the hallway, more quiet and focused, and be really ready for Mrs. Smith and our music class and give her the respect and attention that she deserves? Okay, so now we're having a conversation, we're noticing together what the need is in the moment. Someone's gonna make a suggestion, maybe I'll have a student leader lead instead of me always leading. It takes a little while to get to that, but you can get to that. You go to the music class, it goes really well, you come back and you reflect on that experience, or maybe you reflect after. Todd, what do you think of the energy now? Right, after? And Todd would be like, oh, it's quieter. What are you guys noticing? Oh, someone says, oh, I feel like my shoulders just came down from my ears, or my brain just calmed down. I was starting to get a headache. Those are the types of real, genuine, authentic comments that the students will come up with. When we're able to reflect, it's like getting to learn something twice. So when we're talking about neuroplasticity and building new habits of mind and new neural pathways, when we practice something and then we reflect on it after, with me asking questions and drawing out of you what's happening in your mind-body state, what's happening in the classroom, in the community, it's like you learn it again, and you take that groove and that one time you practice something and you go through it again, so it becomes a little deeper and wider. If we do that enough, what do they say? 21 days to build a new habit. If we do that enough, it becomes a habit. It becomes integrated. So now, when Todd's coach on the soccer field and says to Todd, I know you play offense all the time, but goalie didn't show up, you're in for goalie. And Todd's like, what's gonna happen? He's gonna go into the stress response, his amygdala is gonna be going crazy, and his heart rate's gonna start to beat or whatever, but he's walking out to that goal, and if he's been doing balloon breath over and over and over, and he knows, he'll go automatically to that balloon breathing as he's walking out to that goal without even thinking about it. That's integration. That's when we can really take what we're learning and apply it to a different context. That's the real deal. So Yoga and Mindfulness at school is great. I have 4 minutes, so I'm just going to try to rush. We don't have to go through all this. You'll have the PowerPoint if you want to look at this a little bit more. But it definitely ties in and supports a lot of our objectives and other programs and initiatives that we already have going on in schools. PBIS, RTI, certainly a lot of our social emotional programs really helps to create a foundation for that, especially in terms of the self-awareness and self-management categories and competencies. The other thing is it's really supportive. I had this one principal say to me one time, Common Core was first coming out. He's like, oh, we can't bring anything into the school if it doesn't align with Common Core. So you're gonna have to go show me how that works. So I literally went to the library, I did, and I started like this whole Excel spreadsheet, and I had all the standards. I think I was working on language arts at the time. And then I had all the standards, and I was aligning everything that we were doing with the various standards. And I started down there, and it was like 3 days later, I'm like, what am I doing? I threw my pencil up, and I went back to his office, and I said, Bud, your Common Core doesn't mean jack squat unless the kids are ready to learn. So let's get them there first. That's what this is about. It's not about aligning to Common Core. I mean, I can do that for you, but really he's like, oh, you're right, you're absolutely right? So we talked about that a little bit. So yes, academic, physical, but let's get to the personal, social. So we're really thinking about the social, emotional learning competencies. We're thinking about self-awareness has to come first. That's the foundation of everything. That's what we're building here. Self-awareness, noticing, being comfortable with what's going on inside, pausing for a moment, inside and around ourselves. And then we can build some self-management strategies, some self-regulation, some self-control. Then suddenly we're going to be a little more socially aware. Just naturally, that's going to happen, right? But it has to start here first. Naturally, we're going to start to make more responsible decisions because we're taking that mindful pause for a moment, right? And then making a decision, a less reactive one, most likely, and so on and so forth. So when do we do this in the classroom? Oh my gosh, when wouldn't we do this in the classroom, right? Transitions, for sure. Beginning of the day, end of the day, heading out and getting ready, getting in line. When kids are starting to slump over their desk and they're yawning, what do they need? They need to get up and move a little bit. Before a test, anxiety is high. When your class committee has the grumpies, maybe something yucky happened out at recess. You know, there's so many different opportunities to notice things as individuals and as a classroom and start to practice these things and make them happen a day. Of course, it's super beneficial for us as well, and that really even has to come first. That's a whole nother workshop. Here's a couple of sequences that are really fun for different things. We talk about this a little bit more in the longer workshop, but this is an example of a pre-testing sequence. And then this is an example of a balancing high energy sequence. Energy is too high. How can we meet kids where they are and then get them focused and ready to learn, and maybe even give them a little time in, such as an imagination vacation to shift that energy. This is our model for schools. Like I said at the beginning, we really try to empower schools from the inside. We don't want you to be dependent on us. We want you to be dependent on you. So we're going to give you the tools and skills and curricula and strategies that you need to create a focused, phased, unique to you and your school and your unique school situations and initiatives action plan for school-wide implementation. So we have an initial workshop, there's one tomorrow here if you want to join us. There's a foundational workshop. We mostly provide it as in-service professional development to schools, but every so often we'll do a public one like this, where anybody could come. And that's the foundation of the whole thing. And at that point, oftentimes a leadership team in a school will develop, and then that leadership team comes to the next level of training. And that's where we really dive into case studies of what other schools have done, what works, what doesn't, what the challenges and opportunities are in your school, to then be able to craft an action plan for school-wide implementation, in which case you would be the leaders for that, with our support of course, but really it's more of an initiative from the inside, which we have found over the years is a lot more sustainable, and it's a lot more effective, quite frankly, than being dependent on something outside of the school. It's 12:25, but I would love to just show you this quick video as a wrap up. This is a case study of a school that has actually done what I just talked about. Can you see it okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll see if that. Oh my computer is like completely frozen. That's never happened before. That's so strange, guys. Any ideas on what I would even hit to get out of that? Escape is not working. My clicker's not working. And okay, here we go. Let's see if that works. There we go. Can you hear that okay?
We have a very, very diverse population. We have 30 different languages represented at Edmond. When I came 3 years ago, I spent a lot of time the first few weeks just really looking at our school-wide system, what was in place, what was missing. The first thing I really noticed is that students weren't able to self-regulate at all. If you looked at them funny, they would hit you. And so we really worked hard on building relationships. We incorporated things that we already knew. So a lot of us had training with capturing kids' hearts. A lot of us had training with responsive classroom. And all of us had training with CDIS. By April of that first year, we realized we were working really hard and not going anywhere very fast. And so we kind of stepped back and we created a school-wide system. So the first thing we put in place was our stop, think, and make a good choice. And we really were still trying to figure out what were we not able to give our students that we really needed them to have. And bottom line was, we weren't teaching them how to self-regulate. So we weren't teaching them what to do after they stopped to think and make a good choice. So we started to explore some different ways that we could help students self-regulate their behaviors and their emotions and be more mindful of what they were doing. So we researched a lot of different yoga programs and then actually took a vote on if we wanted to begin implementation and moving forward with that. We really didn't want to stop at 18 weeks, and we wanted to make sure that if we were going to implement this, we were going to implement the entire year, every day. So our academic data was overall increase was 18.7%, and that doesn't happen very often. We were the highest in our district.
Most improved, definitely.
We have students before tests now saying, you know, to their teachers, can we do a countdown to come, or can we do a balloon breath right now to keep myself focused and centered? And they use those all throughout the day, and that was really our goal. Our office referrals 3 years ago were over 1,000. And then this year, going into our third year, we're sitting at about 250 to 300. The decrease in referrals has been huge. And the increase of just student leadership and students helping other students calm down. I mean, it brings tears to your eyes, because I have a student that struggled first semester and is now one of our go-to leaders. A student struggling, he's always like, hey, give me 5 minutes with them. I'll help them calm down. And he walks them through, and he'll ask the students, what's your go-to breath today? Let me do it with you. A lot of our students use Y4C outside of the school setting, and that's what they address. You know, maybe at a soccer game, or when their sisters were fighting, or when they were fighting with their sisters or brothers, you know, and how they use Y4C at home. We're so glad and so grateful that we went in this direction, because I really do feel without that implementation of yoga for classrooms that we would not be where we're at today.
So that's a really unique school, and that's a very unique story. So a lot of our schools have not carved out, you know, specific times of day to take the yoga and mindfulness time. This particular school decided to do it that way. That was their action plan and how they wanted to do it. They took our 18-lesson curriculum actually, and they stretched each one of our lessons over 2 weeks so that it could span the whole year. They took our themes, our Be Well topics, and they integrated those and stretched those out. And then they added their own things to it and really made it their own. And they have their own year-long curriculum right now that they update a little bit every summer and tweak for the next year. So they've taken ownership. Does that make sense? Like, that's what creates sustainability and effectiveness. You're the teachers, right? You're the school community. You know what's going to work best for your school. Others of our schools have not focused on that specific times of day, but have come up with other action plans for school-wide implementation that work best for them. And that's also been successful. So there's no one size fits all with any of this, right? It's like, what works for your school? What initiatives do you have already going on that this can be layered with and supported? All right, so you can definitely get this PowerPoint, you'll get all the resources, you can join our community, but before you go, I definitely want to give some things away. So I'm gonna do that by just asking